Welcome to Subramani. This is a video which I am making on fund managers. What I look for in fund managers, what irritates me when I don't find it in some other fund managers, right? So there was this very famous fund manager. I am not giving any details about him. He was introduced to a group of very successful investors of a particular group. All these CFOs of that group were sitting there, and the CFO of the group CFO, took a long time in saying, "Oh, this is a great fund manager. He has done fantastic work, and he has blah blah blah." He was introduced for about a minute, and then asked him, "How did you achieve it?" And he just put his head down. He's a good communicator, but he put his head down. He didn't know what to do, where to keep his eyes, and suddenly he said, "Luck," right? Of course, it takes a tremendous amount of humility to accept the role of luck. But the same fund manager, in fact, two of India's top fund managers, I have egged them on to speak at a public function of financial distributors to speak about the mistakes that they made. It could be anything, could be taking too small a stake, could be buying something which they didn't know what it was going to do. For example, Ramdev Agarwal keeps saying, this is a famous example of Eicher Motors, where he bought it, he did all the things and he thought they'll make money because they're a good truck manufacturer, but they ended up making money because they're a motorbike manufacturer, right? So some of these things can happen sometimes, but to admit it in public is very rare. So one very important thing that one looks for in a fund manager is humility, to say I got the product right but I got the timing wrong, or to say, well, I shouldn't have done this, or this was not the intention of the investor didn't know that this could happen, right? So for example, a lower quality debt behaves like really like small cap funds during bad times. This was what we learned during COVID, because if you have very good quality debt also, even if you have the bonds of Tata Power and the rate of interest is 7%, you could have a Tata Power being sold at 9% just because the market does not want to touch you, right? So some of these things will happen. To accept that I did not know this will happen is far more difficult. So humility is very important, to think that this can happen, that I can go wrong, right? So constantly asking yourself, can you go wrong? For example, another fund would not buy Reliance, saying that, well, Reliance good balance sheet is not of good quality. Maybe, but if you are running an index fund, you cannot run away from a HDFC Bank or Reliance or something of that heavy weightage, right? There is weightage, so you have to accept that when a company share price moves in a direction opposite to yours, you have to ask yourself two questions. Did you get it wrong? Or do you think the market is irrational? It is very easy to say market is irrational, because unless you have humility to say, okay, in 1999 I said this and this is what happened, in 2008 I said this and this is what happened. If you go back and analyze your history, which comes from a fund manager who keeps notes on what he is doing. So act as a fund manager for yourself, act as an investor or as an investment manager. See how many mistakes you make, because I was sitting in a group when one big fund manager turned to me and said, "Subra, these people know what kind of mistakes we made in 99, I think 2000, 2001. Then they will stop asking us for tips," right? So similarly, so we have all made mistakes. So it's very important to be humble and at least stand in front of the mirror and accept that you have made a mistake, because there is nothing, no way how you can blame the circumstances, no way how you can blame COVID, RBI, SBI, the other promoters, whatever. I mean, everybody is out there to get you. Understand the environment. Understand the environment that people don't want you to be successful. Understand the environment that when you are successful, people will plot against you. You need to understand all this, but you cannot blame them, because nobody really cares. It's like, when a person comes late, he says, "Oh, there was too much traffic." Accept it. Bombay, you have to expect that there will be traffic, right? So one, that. Second, not very many fund managers are able to give their investment philosophy in very simple terms, that this is what we will do, and because of this we will go wrong, right? So for example, anybody who invested in India, say prior to 2000 13, 14, maybe even 15, would have said, oh my god, the PSUs don't make money. The truth is PSUs didn't make money. Even if you take banks, as banks went through hell, and I've done a separate video on this, how the Modi government did a fantastic job in banking. But because of that, suddenly PSU banks did well. If you missed the bus, I'm very happy that you missed the bus, because getting this bus was very difficult, because you had to take risk with this bus, because at 70 rupees your Bank of Baroda looked fully priced given the quality of management that it has, but at 200 it still has a P of just 7, right? So this is just an example I'm giving you. So some of these turnarounds is very difficult to pick as a fund manager. So if you keep a very simple thing, look, this company has not generated any returns over the last so many decades. It has only destroyed value, therefore I will not invest, and therefore you did not invest, and therefore you lost money, is better than somebody who halfway through change is saying, oh my god, these are now making money, I should enter. Now both of them have their rights and wrongs. One is, you have a very simple philosophy, here are the rules which I made, I'll stick to it. Second one is to say I'm adaptable. 20% of my portfolio I can change my tactics, because when fresh data comes to me, I need to change my mind. So keeping it simple while talking about it, while doing it, and creating a body which will look at it, criticize it, give you feedback and force you to react, it's a very, very difficult combination for fund managers. But some fund managers are able to do it, some fund managers are not able to do it. So looking for that, which means simplicity, but being flexible and being maneuverable, right? So this kind of a thing, somewhere you need it in your strategy. It's not going to be very easy. Even as an investor, it's not going to be very easy, because the bias always sets in. For example, I've said this many times. If I find that a company is registered in Hyderabad, it's not very easy for me to invest, right? Or if it is in Ahmedabad, then I think 100 times whether to invest in these companies. So I have GMR Airport Infra, which I think will build good value over time, but then it's a company based in Hyderabad, so I'm going against my principles, and right now I'm in the money, right? So sometimes this happens, sometimes it doesn't happen. Again, while buying shares, I'm very careful about what I buy. Good track record, dividend paying track record, but there are 3-4 companies in which I'm putting money. There is a market share and all that building, but there is no visible cash flow, right? So which includes an Indigo, which includes Thomas Cook is still in the money, the Zomato, right? These are companies which are not making money, but they are building market share. So sometimes this helps, right? So again, simple strategy, that it has to be dividend paying, all that, but maneuverable enough to say, okay, I'll do it. For example, I bought State Bank of India, I bought Bank of Baroda, I bought Bank of India, I sold a lot of it. I still have Bank of Baroda and State Bank of India, because I do believe that they're still attractively valued. But the kind of return that I've got, I never expected a 4x return in SBI or a 3x return in Bank of Baroda, right? Which has already happened. I mean, I'm still holding on, so that's for a different video, right? Another thing which I like is fund managers creating a team with which they can sit and do some introspection, saying, I bought this was the logic, this is why I bought, this didn't work, this is why it worked. Or saying, I will create a team outside my company with whom I can discuss. It's not going to be very easy. Even as an investor, I find it very difficult to look at some ideas which did not work for me, and I realized why it did not work. I listened to completely wrong people, right? So-called intelligent people who had no clue that they were themselves being cheated by their clients, right? So some of these things happen. So when you look for these kind of features in a fund manager or in an investor or in yourself, it is very difficult, because it's very easy for me to say that, oh, this went wrong because of COVID, this went wrong because of RBI's bad decision. It is actually bad for the country. Doesn't really matter. The question that the market asks is, if you were right, had you put enough money in it, and did you make enough money? and if you were wrong, was it small enough for you to laugh it away and say, oh, it's okay, I didn't lose much, right? Because there are times when you say, oh, this is a good idea, I have bought shares, and then you wish you had bought more than the amount that you bought. But then you also have a limitation saying, I will not invest more than 2% of my net worth into that company, and I'll keep adding, but at 7 or 8% I'll panic and I'll sell. So all these things, within all these constraints, when you work, you have to create your portfolio, but you also have to remember, please be humble, please understand, please make your mistake, do introspection. All this is useful to become a good fund manager or become a good investor. And when you're looking for a fund manager, look for these qualities. Don't ask him ye quarter mein kya chalega, doesn't matter. Ask him how many mistakes, how does he introspect, whom does he ask, who checks his portfolio. CEO will definitely check, investors will definitely check, but does he have some mentor to whom he can go and say, look, this is what I did, this is what went wrong, what happened, right? I don't understand one thing, the world's best players, whether it's in cricket or tennis or anywhere, have a coach whom they can go back and ask. Fund managers don't have coaches. I think that's a good business opportunity to be made by fund managers who are retiring. They should become coaches to the existing fund managers. Thank you.